Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. My brother shot up from his chair and rattled the dishes. The fork in his hand hit the glass hard 3 times. Everyone turned toward him, and my fingers tightened on my wine. The stem slipped and the glass slammed the plate, then tipped. I watched red spread across the table and straight toward his fiancée. I am Aaron and I was 27 that night. I still remember how my stomach clenched when the wine touched her dress. She pushed her chair back fast and let out this sharp little laugh. My mom gasped and grabbed napkins like the world was ending. Nobody checked if my hand was shaking on the ruined glass. Grant lifted his glass higher and cleared his throat. He said he had something big to share with all of us. His fiancée pressed her hand over his arm and tried to look shy. That stupid diamond flashed on her finger like it owned the room. I stared at it and felt my jaw lock so tight it hurt. I knew the words before he opened his mouth. "We are engaged." That is what came out, and the table exploded with noise. Chairs scraped and everyone rushed to hug them. I stayed seated. My hand was still wrapped around the empty stem like I could fix something. My aunt started crying and kept saying this was perfect timing. My dad slapped Grant on the back harder than usual. His fiancée moved around the table, hugging people like she was on stage. When she reached me, she leaned in close and whispered near my ear. Her breath was sweet and her words felt like a slap. "You will not ruin this for me." That is what she murmured with that thin little smile. I pulled back and for a second I forgot how to breathe. My fingers slipped on the stem and the glass almost fell again. In my head something clicked into place. This was not a mistake. My mom caught that almost fall and shot me a warning look. She kept smiling at the room like her face was stuck that way. Grant wrapped his arm around his fiancée and pulled her in tight. My mom lifted her glass and told everyone to toast to their love. I wanted to crawl under the table, but my name left her mouth. "Aaron, say something for them." You know that awful beat when a whole room expects you to perform. Every face swung my way and the air turned heavy in my chest. I pushed my chair back and forced my legs to straighten under me. My brother looked so happy that for a heartbeat I almost lied. I raised my empty glass and heard it knock the bottle behind me. My voice came out thinner than I planned, but I did not stop. I said I hoped his fiancée knew exactly what she was doing. I asked if she ever planned to tell him what she did to me. The room went still so fast it felt like someone cut the sound. Grant frowned and stepped closer like he had not heard me right. His fiancée froze with her hand on his shoulder, and her smile slid away. My aunt lowered her phone and finally stopped filming the happy moment. My mom set her glass down very carefully and turned toward me. Her voice came out low as she called my reaction vile. The front door banged behind us and my balance slipped. My mother still held my elbow like she owned my arm. I stumbled down the last step and almost rolled my ankle. Laughter from the dining room leaked through the walls and felt fake. She spun to face me halfway down the path and stopped. Her fingers dropped away and I rubbed the raised mark. "You embarrassed your brother in front of everyone tonight." Her voice stayed low and sharp and it scraped my nerves. "What are you doing?" Her mouth barely moved but her jaw clenched. I could still hear cheering inside and it made me dizzy. I told the truth. The words sounded small even to me. Back then I really thought that line would protect me. She took one step closer and I caught the alcohol on her. "Do not start your drama tonight." Her eyes never left mine. "You know what she did." My throat burned as I forced it out. That single sentence felt like walking back into a locked room. She blew out a slow breath and looked toward the driveway. She apologized for that work nonsense already. Her hand flicked through the air. My chest tightened because even that version felt generous to her. "You watched what happened." The memory still chokes me now when I say it. She turned back to me and her expression hardened in an instant. "I watched you blow it out of proportion." Her eyebrows rose just slightly. "You are doing it again right now." Her voice dropped even lower. That hit harder than the words she had used at the table. For a moment I actually checked myself like maybe she was right. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. Then I remembered the message that started everything and my fingers clenched. I did not describe that part to her yet on purpose. I am not making this up to ruin your night. My lips shook. She hurt me once and you do not want to see it. The words felt clumsy, but the fear under them was real. If I pushed more, I knew something old break that I could not fix. She glanced back toward the house where everyone kept cheering without us. Your brother finally has some joy. Her mouth curled around the word finally. You could not give me that, at least let her try. That sentence landed heavier than any insult, and I actually stepped back. I realized right then she was not neutral, and maybe never had been. Every choice already tilted toward the smiling woman inside on his arm. My part in this scene was to shut up and clap. The thought made my stomach twist so hard I tasted acid. So what do you want me to do? My voice came out rough. Walk back in there and pretend nothing ever happened. Her answer was instant. Smile for the photos, hug her, congratulate them, be decent. The list stung. She acted like decency meant swallowing my own history without water. I should have walked away then and spared myself a lot. Instead, I nodded once because I wanted her to believe me. We turned toward the door again, and the noise inside grew louder. I did not know it yet, but that was my last quiet moment with any of them. My phone buzzed so hard it almost slipped from my hand. Grant's name lit the screen with 3 unread messages stacked. The last one read, "We need to talk, today." I stared at it and felt my thumb hover over reply, like even that tap could blow up what was left. I typed erased, then typed again until my eyes stung. "Can you meet me somewhere public?" was what finally stayed. I added the cafe near his place, then deleted the word please. When I hit send, my stomach lurched like I had jumped, and for a second I hoped he would ignore me. His answer came before I could lock the screen again. Fine, 30 minutes, no emoji, no softener, just that. I grabbed my keys too fast and dropped them on the floor. The whole drive there I rehearsed versions of the same sentence, and every one sounded worse than the last. He was already there when I walked in. Arms crossed, foot tapping, eyes on the door like he had been timing me. He jerked his head toward the empty seat and didn't stand up. That tiny choice told me exactly what kind of meeting this was. "You gonna throw a drink this time or what?" His words cut clean. I sat down slowly and laced my fingers together under the table. "I'm not here to fight with you," my voice came out low. "I'm here because last night got twisted, and I need you to hear me." He scoffed and leaned back so his chair squeaked against the floor. "You humiliated us in front of our family, and you think it got twisted." He rubbed his jaw like he was trying not to swear at me. "If this is some half apology, get to it because my break is short." "I'm sorry for the timing," the words scraped coming out. "I'm not sorry for warning you about her," that part landed harder. His eyebrows lifted a fraction, and I watched the temperature in his eyes drop. There it was, the line you'd not cross back from. "Warning me about my fiance," he repeated it like it tasted bad. "She told me what happened with you at work," his gaze pinned me. "She already took responsibility for her part, and you're still on this." That sentence knocked the breath sideways because suddenly I was the stubborn one. "What exactly did she tell you?" My fingers dug into my palms. He tilted his head like he was explaining something to a child. "That you sent some pictures around, then blamed her when it blew up. She tried to joke with you about it, you overreacted, HR cleared it." I laughed once, the sound sharp and way too loud in that room. People at the next table glanced over and then looked away fast. "Grant, she stole them off my phone and dropped them in the group chat. They were mine and I trusted her, and she turned them into a punchline." He shook his head before I had even finished that last sentence. "That's not how she remembers it, and there is nothing on her record. She showed me the emails, it was investigated, and they called it miscommunication." That word made my throat close, like we were describing a late pizza. "You saw the way they looked at me after that," my voice wavered. "I walked in there every day like a walking warning sign." He stared past my shoulder, jaw clenched tight enough to hurt to watch. "You survived it," he muttered, like that erased the way it played out. I leaned forward until my elbows almost hit his drink. "I didn't just survive it, I had to start over in a different place. She bragged about wrecking my reputation, and you're sitting here defending her." My pulse hammered in my ears, but I kept my eyes on his. He finally met my stare, and something like pity flickered there. You always do this, he said, voice softer and somehow worse. Something happens and you stretch it until you're the biggest victim. Mom thinks so too, you know that, right? That part stung more than the word vile from the night before. I sank back in my chair and pressed my nails into my knees. So that's it, you and Mom both voted already and I lost. Hearing myself say it out loud made me feel both dramatic and weirdly calm. You didn't lose anything, he spread his hands like this was reasonable. You still have a job, you still have a life, we're just asking you to move on. Move on from her putting my body on display for her coworkers. The phrase sounded brutal in that bright room and his face tightened. She told me she warned you before sending anything, he fired back. She thought you were okay with it, then realized you weren't, and she owned that. That is not someone who hates you, that is someone who messed up. Listening to him recite her version felt like watching my own story dubbed over. I never agreed to that, not once, not even close. The memory of my phone in her hand flashed up hard. I pushed it down because this chapter was not for reliving every second. This isn't a misunderstanding, this is you choosing the easier story. He pushed his chair back an inch and exhaled through his teeth. You waited years to bring this up and picked my engagement dinner. What did you think would happen? We'd toss the ring on the floor. He shook his head again, like he honestly believed this was about drama points. I swallowed and forced myself to own my part for a second. I didn't think you would actually marry her, I admitted, words quiet. I thought she'd hurt you before it got that far, and I wouldn't need to do this. Saying that out loud made me sound cruel even to myself, and I watched him flinch. So now you're trying to hurt her first, his eyes narrowed in on me. She told me you threatened to ruin everything if we stayed together. That you looked her in the face and said she'd pay for what happened. I realized she wasn't just rewriting the past, she was already editing last night. I told her I wouldn't pretend nothing happened. My hands shook under the table. That is not a threat, that is a boundary, and you know the difference. He tapped the table twice like a judge calling time on an argument. I know you embarrassed her, she cried all night, and that I saw. That line boxed me in harder than anything else he said. Her tears were accepted as evidence, my humiliation was an overreaction. I still have the messages from people who warned me about her after I started. He cut in fast, I don't want to dig through old garbage, Aaron. Hearing my name like that, clipped and cold, almost made me back down. Almost, not quite. If you refuse to look at proof, then this isn't about what's real. It's about you needing her to be innocent so your life stays simple. He went quiet, and for a second I thought I had landed something. Then he reached for his keys and stood up without touching his drink. If you care about this family, you'll apologize to her, he said. And if you can't do that, I don't know how you fit into our wedding. The word "are" hung there, heavier than engaged ever did. I stared at the table as his footsteps moved away from me. Every part of me wanted to chase him and keep explaining, just keep talking. Instead, I stayed seated and pulled out my phone, because it hit me that my memory alone would never be enough against their version. My screen refreshed and their matching grins jumped back to the top. New comments kept stacking under the engagement post faster than I could read. Every congratulations felt like someone poking a bruise I could not cover. I caught myself scrolling instead of blinking, like if I stopped the photos would disappear. She had tagged my whole family, even me, in one of the shots. My name glowed under a caption about finally getting my forever. I clicked the tag, hovered over the comment box, and typed 3 words. Do they know? Sat there for a full breath before I erased it. Another notification slid down from the top, different tone, different app. A request from a name I had not seen since that nightmare year. For a second I thought about ignoring it and going to bed. Then my thumb hit accept before my brain caught up, because some part of me was desperate. Hey, just saw who he's marrying, that was the first line. Are you okay? Came right after no emojis, just that. My chest tightened because no one from that place ever asked me that. I stared at the typing bubble and felt my pulse climb higher. I'm fine, I wrote, which was a lie even my phone probably recognized. Just family stuff, another useless sentence that explained absolutely nothing. The reply came fast. I still have those screenshots, by the way. My fingers went numb and I had to set the phone down. You know when your brain lags behind your eyes for a second? That was me, just frozen, staring at the screen like it belonged to someone else. What screenshots? Took me 3 tries to type without dropping the phone. From when she bragged in the team chat, I kept them. My vision blurred for a moment and I blinked hard until it cleared. More messages appeared, a file icon, then another one right under it. I wasn't sure if you wanted them, but seeing this engagement. Again that typing bubble, like they were choosing how far to go. Please send them. I didn't add anything polite after that. The files downloaded slow, or maybe my head just moved fast. When the first image opened, I actually felt my stomach flip. Her username sat there, right above my name, like a label on a trophy. She really thought those pics wouldn't get around. That was her first line. She should thank me for the free marketing, followed with a laughing reaction. That girl acts like a saint. I just gave people the real version. Reading it again in the present tense made the room tilt under me. I swiped to the next capture with my thumb shaking. She'll get over it, she's not exactly important around here anyway. She should be grateful anyone's paying attention, sat under that one. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my face. Another screenshot, another little digital knife. She keeps whining, maybe I'll send them wider so she learns. Somebody had added a nervous reaction, then backed off with a joke. No one had stepped in for me then, and that still burned. Sorry it took me this long, my old coworker wrote under the last file. I didn't want to stir things up if you were done with it. If you use them, leave my name out, okay? That last line snapped me out of the fog and back into strategy. I thanked them, promised their name would stay out of anything. Then I set the phone on the table and just listened to my own breathing. I knew exactly what I held now and what it could blow apart. I also knew there was no way my family would just accept my word over hers. Looking back, this was the fork in the road for me. I could have deleted everything and decided to keep my distance. Instead, I opened my laptop and transferred each file like evidence. It felt cold and calculated and also, honestly, like survival. I called my mother before I could talk myself out of it. She picked up on the second ring, voice too bright for that hour. What now came before hello, and I almost hung up. I need you to see something in person, I managed, keeping my tone flat. There was a pause, then a sigh loud enough to sting through the speaker. If this is about last night again, I am exhausted, Aaron. It's about what she actually did, not my tone at dinner. Another stretch of air, then a short, clipped fine come by. Driving over there, my hands gripped the wheel so tight they hurt. I kept picturing myself turning around at every intersection and going home. But the images on my computer were burned into my brain now. I couldn't unsee them, and pretending they didn't exist felt worse than any fight. When I walked into the kitchen, she didn't offer me anything. Her arms were folded, her jaw already set for battle. You have 10 minutes, she said, glancing at the clock on the stove. I opened the laptop on the table and turned the screen toward her. I want you to read these before you decide I'm being dramatic. My voice shook, and that annoyed me almost more than her attitude. She looked like she wanted to push the device away, then leaned in. Her finger tapped the trackpad slow, like each swipe cost her. The first image filled the screen, her future daughter-in-law's username at the top. My mother leaned closer, eyes moving left to right in small jerks. I watched her mouth press into a line at the word marketing. She didn't ask questions, didn't gasp, didn't react the way I had hoped. She clicked to the next one, then the next, still silent. I could see her shoulders tighten at not exactly important around here. When she reached, maybe I'll send them wider so she learns, she stopped. Her hand moved to the corner and she closed the window with one click. I wanted you to know this is not in my head, I pushed. She mocked me while she was wrecking my job, then laughed about it. My pulse thudded in my throat, waiting for something like outrage from her. What I got instead still makes my chest go cold when I remember it. It was years ago. She straightened up and rested her hands on the table. You're still breathing, you have work, your life moved on. She tilted her head like she was talking about a bad haircut. I'm not throwing away my son's chance at a family over some old screenshots. That phrase knocked the air out of me faster than any insult. Some old screenshots, like they were coupons, not proof of what happened. She's not just some girl, she targeted me and enjoyed it, I pushed again. She's about to stand in our pictures like we're all clean. My mother's eyes flashed at the word our, like I had overstepped even there. You keep acting like you're the only one who ever got hurt. Her voice rose now sharp, finally showing something like real feeling. Your brother has waited his whole life for someone to choose him. He did not ask her to humiliate me first, I shot back. I did not sign up to be collateral so he could feel loved. My hands were shaking now, but I kept them flat on the table. If you let this slide, you're telling me I deserved what happened. She slammed her palm down just once and my laptop jumped. What I am telling you is that I am tired of your crusades. You latch onto one thing and you never let it die. Other people get to move forward, even if your feelings are not finished. For a second, I actually wondered if I was losing my mind. Was I really asking that much, that my own mother believe her eyes? The evidence is right there, I said, even though the files were closed. You saw her words, you know she isn't who she pretends to be. She looked at me then, really looked, and her voice dropped again. You want me to call off this engagement, that's what this is. You want me to march in there and blow up his happiness. If I do that, he will never forgive either of us, and you know it. I swallowed hard because for the first time it sounded like a real choice. My pain on one side, my brother's version of joy on the other. Maybe he shouldn't marry someone who sees women like props, I whispered. And maybe you should care that she already did it to your daughter. Her face twisted at the word daughter like I'd used it as a weapon. She straightened and turned toward the sink, conversation basically over in her mind. Happiness counts more than digging up old garbage, she said, voice flat again. If you love this family, you'll let this go and stop making everything about you. There it was, the verdict, clean and brutal and final. She picked up a dishcloth and started wiping the counter like I had vanished. I stared at her back and felt something hard and ugly lock into place. If they wanted to ignore what she did in private, I would just have to drag it into the light where they couldn't pretend not to see. My thumb hovered over the send button and would not drop. The family chat glared back at me, our last name in bold. Her smiling profile photo sat right under it, already part of our circle. Every screenshot waited underneath like little bombs, ready to blow through that picture. I typed erased, then typed again until the text box blurred. Before you plan a wedding with her, read this. I added, please look at every image before you answer. When I finally hit send, my heart lurched like my body tried to grab it back. The files uploaded one by one while I stared at the progress bar. First the bragging, then the threats, then the casual cruelty, all lined up. I watched the spinning icon like it was counting down to impact. When the last checkmark appeared, I locked the phone and put it face down. That lasted maybe 5 seconds before I grabbed it again. 3 little profile circles popped up under my message, all on typing. Then they disappeared, then came back, then vanished again, like nervous breathing. Nobody wanted to go first, and somehow that scared me more than yelling. Grant broke the stalemate with one short line. What am I looking at? Popped onto the screen, no punctuation. I read it 3 times, like maybe I could stretch it into disbelief. Her own words about me, I wrote back, my fingers shaking. Dots appeared under his name, then vanished, then returned. Anyone can fake screenshots if they work hard enough. I almost laughed because that was honestly the easiest part to check. Ask her to open the chat history on her phone, I shot back. A full minute passed with nothing, just the silent header at the top. Then my mom chimed in, her icon brighter than the rest. Why are you doing this to us? Came through, no greeting. Not to her, not to him, to us. I swallowed hard and propped the phone on my knee. Because you told me proof is the only thing that matters. I watched the little delivered tag settle under my reply. When she started typing again, my mouth went completely dry. I saw enough earlier and I made my decision. This is you dragging your brother through mud because you're bitter. That word hit harder than half the insults I've collected in my life. I could almost feel her turning those screenshots into my character flaw. My dad finally appeared with one short sentence that tried to calm things. Let's all breathe and talk about this later. I stared at it because that was his specialty, not picking sides. Later is when she's already part of this family, I wrote back. A separate notification flashed at the top from an unknown number. I clicked it before it disappeared, already knowing who it was. "Nice stunt tonight," her message started, no greeting there either. "Did you enjoy digging up gossip from a job you couldn't handle?" I flipped back to the family thread instead of answering her. Grand. T had switched to direct messages, which somehow felt worse. "You're actually sick if you think this helps anyone. You're ruining every happy thing I have on purpose." My thumbs moved before my brain softened anything. "You're furious because I touched the one part she couldn't polish. If those screenshots were lies, she'd show you the full chat right now." I watched the red note pop up and just sit there like a stare. Back in the group chat, my mother dropped the first real blow. "This is not how a normal person behaves. Your brother's fiance is in tears right now because of you." The guilt flipped in my stomach, but underneath it something sharp dug in. "She cried when people saw what she did," I typed, then stopped. That was cruel, even for me in that moment. I changed it to, "I cried when people laughed at my body because of her." Then I hit send before I could smooth it down again. Another message from my mother landed almost immediately. "You always make everything about your pain. Good people make mistakes and grow, you just keep picking at scabs." Seeing myself framed as the infection instead of the wound burned. Grant rejoined the main chat with a longer burst. "She already apologized back then and you know it. She was cleared, you kept pushing, now you're trying to wreck our engagement." I sat there stunned because his memory had fully merged with her spin. I forced myself to answer in small commands so I wouldn't spiral. "Stop leaning on that word cleared," I wrote. "Read the sentences where she calls me unimportant and expendable. You're marrying someone who treated me like practice." He vanished from the chat, then the typing dots jumped on my private thread. "I'm blocking you if you keep insulting her," appeared short and final. I stared at it, knowing exactly how close we were to that edge. "Block me after you actually check her phone," I replied, fingers numb. There was a new name in the family chat then. Her profile picture appeared at the bottom with a fresh little joined. Of course, my mother had added her right in the middle of this mess. That detail still makes my stomach twist when I think about it now. "Hi everyone, I don't want to fight," her text popped up sugary. "I made painful mistakes in the past and I've learned a lot since. I would never intentionally hurt family, especially now." She didn't use my name once, and somehow that said more than anything. My hands trembled so badly I had to set the phone down again. I paced the room once, twice, then sat and picked it up. "If you're so changed, show them the entire conversation," I wrote directly to her. "Scroll up screen record, let them see every message without you curating." She didn't answer me in private, she answered in front of everyone. I'm not reliving an old toxic work environment to satisfy her obsession. I'm focusing on building a future with Grant, not rewriting history. The way she used my brother's name like a shield made my throat tighten. My mother reacted with a little heart under that message right there. Then she added, "This is what taking responsibility looks like. I'm proud of you for staying calm while my daughter attacks you." Reading that line felt like watching my place in the family shrink. Grant's final contribution to the group came right after hers. "For my own peace, I'm muting this conversation for a while. I hope someday you get help because this isn't normal." He never said who you was, but no one asked. I knew what was coming next before it landed. My mother's last message hit like a door slam in text form. "I can't watch you destroy everything I've worked for with this family. Until you apologize to both of them, do not contact me again." I typed "apologize for showing the truth," then deleted the whole line. There was nothing I could write that wouldn't feed their story about me. So I left the chat without saying anything else and waited. 10 seconds later, a system note popped up, "You have been removed." Then my screen filled with individual alerts, one after another. "You can't send messages to this contact," popped up under my mother's thread. The same error appeared when I tapped on Grant's name and tried anyway. By the time it reached my father's number, I didn't bother testing it. I sat on the edge of my bed with the phone in my lap. The screenshots were still there, stored neatly in their folder like evidence. Out in the world, their engagement post kept climbing with likes. Inside my tiny apartment, every family chat bubble had gone gray. Looking back, I can admit I did swing hard. I dropped everything in one brutal move instead of easing them in. I also know that if I had stayed quiet, they would call that healthy. And the woman who laughed about me would still be spotless in their story. So now I live in this weird space between righteous and reckless. I did the one thing I swore I would do if I ever had proof. I showed them what she is when no one's watching, and they chose her anyway. Some nights I wonder if I burned my family down or just refused to live in a house that was already on fire.